I just didn't realize that there would be things that we couldn't take with us.
Well, it's not that you can't take them with you. It's that there are certain items that cannot be shipped without risk of damage or even injury.
And that's what you're calling non-allowables.
Right. We use the term non-allowables for items that cannot be transported. The federal government's Department of Transportation and the Environmental Protection Agency have set strict regulations regarding what can be transported by household goods carriers.
Well, it's not so much hazardous materials I'm concerned about. It seems like we have a lot of other things that you won't carry either.
For safety reasons, transporting hazardous materials requires special vehicles and containers, even specially trained drivers. Mayflower and United are not hazardous material handlers, and our van operators aren't licensed to carry hazardous materials. Any items that have a high risk of causing harm to people or to other items, or even items that could spoil during shipment, are not to be transported by Mayflower and United.
So then there are two main categories of these non-allowable items: hazardous materials and perishable.
That's right. And perishables are non-allowable because they would spoil or be destroyed in transit. These include frozen foods like frozen meats, dinners, or ice cream, refrigerated food like milk, eggs, or other dairy products, open or half-used food, and foods without preservatives that would mold or weevil in transport, like bread, cereal, or desserts. Any produce, which are fruits and vegetables. Not only could they rot, but they're restricted from being transported between many states and plants.
Well, that would make sense in that they can't be watered. And I guess it could get pretty warm or cold in the vans depending on the season.
Exactly. And many plants are delicate and they simply would not withstand a move. And also, Kathy, some states have regulations regarding plants that require quarantine and inspection before the plant can be shipped or upon arrival. Now, an exception to this rule is that we can move plants and frozen food if the shipment is being transported less than 150 miles and being delivered within 24 hours of loading. Frozen foods, of course, must remain in the freezer for loading, but we always load these items last so that we can access them right away at destination. However, if a shipment is going into storage, then no perishables can be included. In fact, we always recommend to our customer that if a shipment is going into storage, that no food be included. Even canned goods can spoil over time. Obviously, most perishables will be found in a customer's kitchen. Also, freezers with perishable food may be found in basements. And of course, plants will be found in various rooms of the house. We always ask the customer to dispose of any perishable food. I always suggest that they just give it away. If the customer isn't available when the packers are there, they can leave the items for the van operator or crew leader to discuss with the customer during loading.
We found that determining whether an item is hazardous can be a little trickier than recognizing perishables. I mean, some hazardous materials, like gasoline, are obviously dangerous, but others aren't so obvious. It seems the main thing that classifies an item as hazardous is the risk involved in transporting it, and that can be a difficult judgment call. For example, we found many items are non-allowable just because they're flammable. But if you stop and think about it, almost everything on a shipment is flammable.
What makes certain flammable items non-allowable is their risk of igniting or expanding. For example, gasoline, propane, and other fuels can ignite by themselves. Also, aerosol cans can explode if exposed to heat. Examples of common non-allowable flammables are matches, gasoline and kerosene, propane tanks or other compressed fuels, motor oil, lamp oil, sterno, cleaning solvents or ammonia, charcoal, paint thinners and paint, chemistry sets, and fertilizer. Examples of explosives are aerosols, fireworks, loaded guns, and ammunition.
My husband has a small antique gun collection, and we learned that unloaded guns may be packed, but not ammunition. Even if the packers know how to unload a gun, they're never allowed to do it by themselves. That's strictly our responsibility.
Some items are non-allowable, Kathy, because if they would leak, they could damage other materials. Chemicals would be an example, like for your swimming pool.
So, like liquid bleach might fall into that category?
Sure, it would, as would pesticides, any poisons like weed killer, Even car and household batteries. We remove batteries from radios, flashlights, electronics, and toys before we pack those items. May not seem important, but actually those batteries could corrode and damage the contents of a carton.
I asked our packers what they look for at the residence. Basically, the bottom line is using common sense. Will it cause a fire? Will it explode? Will it spoil? How will it react to heat or cold? If it leaks, will it damage other items? And it's important to read the warnings on the product labels.
Here are some common household products. You might use them every day, but you may not have ever thought about them in terms of whether they can be packed or not. And some products will just require judgment on your part, Alex, or the packers.
So glass cleaner. I don't see any warnings.
No, and in a spray bottle, it can certainly be packed. But glass cleaner in an aerosol is flammable because its contents are under pressure, so obviously that would be a non-allowable. And that brings up a good point. We train our packers to never just assume that items are or aren't non-allowables. They must check labels for cautions and warnings. If there's ever any doubt, they don't pack the item. Now, some items could be considered non-allowable because of how temperature will affect them. Use common sense. For example, liquids in glass may freeze and cause the glass to break if they're transported in sub-freezing temperatures. Or wax candles, which could melt and be destroyed in the extreme heat of a van in summer. Another example would be carbonated beverages in bottles or cans. These could expand and leak in extreme heat or cold. Some places to expect non-allowables are the kitchen, the bathroom, the laundry room, and the basement.
Garages, storage, or tool sheds will often have a great number of non-allowables. They include gasoline, kerosene, propane, charcoal, lighter fluid, weed killers, motor oil, swimming pool chemicals, and aerosols like spray lubricants.
If our packers are unsure whether an item is non-allowable, they always check with their office. If there is any doubt, especially regarding safety, they will not pack the item. They're trained to always communicate with the customer, point out non-allowables, and explain why they're not to be shipped. And most important, to offer options, such as shipping via another method or leaving them behind.
There were other items that can be shipped, but they recommended to us for our own benefit that we take them ourselves. Items of personal importance or sentimental value. These are things that are difficult or, in the case of sentimental value, impossible to replace. Because of this, they strongly recommend that customers transport these items themselves. Things like financial documents such as CDs, stocks and bonds, airline tickets, and insurance policies. Other valuable records and papers like medical and dental records, school records, deeds, or other documents pertaining to the new home. Also, prescription medication, car keys, even address or checkbooks. Obviously, although these items have little monetary value, they would be difficult to replace. Items with great sentimental value include family photographs, baby books, and wedding albums. In the eyes of the customer, these are definitely irreplaceable.
They also suggested alternatives to shipping, packing items in our car, things like that, which we appreciated. And then there are high-value items, which are items of high monetary value, like furs, jewelry, and collections like stamps and coins. These items were listed on a special high-value inventory that we filled out prior to packing.
And that's why the importance of properly identifying non-allowables is so heavily emphasized in the training of all of our packers. It just can't be overstated. If transported, hazardous materials can cause fire, explosions, damage, even injuries. For ourselves as well as for our customers, knowing what items not to pack is just as critical as knowing how to pack them.